All right, we are up and running and live. So let's go ahead and get everything loaded up and kick off today's drawing stream. All right, Clip Studios popped in. I'm going to turn the BGM on and check the levels real quick. We are playing songs from the Master BGM playlist today. Let me check some of these older ones. I'm going to leave the old ones about, let's see, there. What about the stream sounds? That should be fine. I can always adjust it. I don't want the BGM to be too loud. Yeah, we'll leave it there. All right, what are we doing today? So we've jumped around a little bit last few drawing streams. We worked with AI generation, which is pretty fun. I want to get back to that, maybe on the next one. We devoted one stream to completing some of our older projects that were left in an unfinished state because I'm really bad at finishing projects on time. And we haven't gone back to the character study in a while, so I figured we'd do that today. We're going to start with the male character study that we began and kind of chipped away at over a few drawing streams. And hopefully we can make some progress on sketching out some potential outfits. And we'll see how long that takes and where we end up as far as this particular one goes. To sort of recap, the first thing we did, we'll hide these real quick. The first thing we did, the beginning of the character study, kind of like the female one, which I have on another tab. We brainstormed some ideas for the character's face. Oh, there's a whole bunch of these. Yeah, there we go. And we took the same eye and face structure, and we basically brainstormed hair designs. Using these real quick sketches, trying to figure out, okay, if we were going to actually draw the fully fleshed out character, what we want the hair to look like. And this is the male character. And I could have sworn I marked off some that I liked, but maybe I put that on a layer that I have hidden. Yeah, it's probably hidden somewhere. That's fine. I can always go back and look at the footage, or I can change my mind too. We're looking at kind of a fairly youthful protagonist. We can adjust some features kind of to decide on the final look. I don't think I want to change the eye shape and sort of nose and mouth shape, but maybe the age of the character we can play around with. I'm thinking maybe like a early 20s character. After we took a bunch of ideas for hairstyles, we started sketching out outfits, clothing and or armor for the character. And I believe we settled on kind of like a fighter type character. Maybe not necessarily a pro tag specifically, but a character who's going to be dealing with combat or combat situations. And so that's why the majority of the things are focused around the idea of armor. And kind of like our last one, which was also a character with armor, I want to build off of these ideas a little bit more. And like we did on the female one, I think we had maybe 8 possible ideas for outfit concepts. It'd be nice if we can get 8 different ideas for the male one. There's no real rule or set amount. I just like having a bunch of options to choose from. That way, if we decide to line out ink, color, and shade multiple different outfits, we can basically have some contrasting themes and looks. So I'm going to just jump right into a new layer here. We'll keep these other ones up for reference. I could fit number 4 here on the right. And I'm going to start sketching out some ideas for another outfit. And it'll kind of keep in line with the idea of it being armor. I think I talked a little bit about it before, but one of the motifs and themes for this particular character's race is that a lot of their outfits tend to be kind of more shell-like. There's a lot of like layered kind of plates and these things you see here, these minerals that are inset like stones or bolts in some cases into different parts of the plating. And so it looks very insect or bug-like in the texture. They're not technically bug people without getting into the specifics of the race and origins, but the style of outfit, be it clothing or armor, is very kind of insect or bug-like. So we'll definitely be keeping those themes in mind when we start sketching out concepts for what will become outfit number 4. We'll just rough in the face. This doesn't matter. When we eventually start fully sketching out the entire concept, we're just going to use the same head. Pretty much everything below the neck is what matters. Maybe we can play around with the idea of asymmetry on this one. I think all the other ones so far, yeah, they've been kind of symmetrical across the torso, upper body, lower body. Maybe we could do something kind of like an entire arm piece. We'll pull up the female character real quick. We did something like that here, so we definitely don't want to fall in the same sort of patterns. We can have this sort of shoulder and partial torso piece. It does need to be sort of attached to something. It's not epoxied onto the body. I'm thinking, let's see, what do we do over here? All these other ones have been some sort of either cut off or kind of like a cuirass or upper body piece. Kind of like the idea of this being more like a shirt, maybe like an armor or textured shirt. Not necessarily like a bodysuit, but kind of similar. That way the armor can go around it. Maybe like an armored midsection part here. Kind of like a belt or a waist piece. Hey, Red Dragon's here. What's up, Red Dragon? How are you doing? Hope your Saturday is going all right. Welcome to the stream. I'm gonna try and keep it chill today and just try and work on some brainstorming ideas. Red Dragon says, doing okay, thanks. Good. Glad to hear it, my dude. You? Me? I'm doing all right. In my continued quest to not wake up right before my stream, was moderately successful today. I woke up about an hour before and was able to get lunch and get everything set up so we could start on time. It was a busy week at the Earth job. I think I mentioned before, maybe a long time ago, but this time of year, from midsummer up until the end of September, is extremely busy in my job. So we got a lot of stuff going on. That's why most of my week's worth of streams are usually only 3 days. Once we get past September, depending on scheduling, I might try and get 4 in a week. But yeah, it's just been busy. Things are going all right. It's just hectic time of year. What are we gonna do in the arms here? We did kind of a forearm bracer deal over here. Same with this one. Like a full arm covering here. Maybe we go just gloves on this one. Kind of like an armor glove style of covering here. we can think about maybe we have a long sleeve shirt type deal covering the upper body. So if we hatch in like a color here, it does go down the arms this way. That would be different from these other ones as well. And it'd be the same thing over here. Give me one sec. Sorry about that. That was a somewhat urgent phone call. But we're good. All right, moving down the body. We'll get back to this arm. It's basically just going to be a mirror of the other side. So this side will be no problem. But for the lower body, we've done a mix of these kind of lower garments. I still don't know what I'm calling these things. I think a few streams ago we had a discussion about the historical term for these, like a tabard versus it's like a type of monk's clothing, I think. Anyway, that doesn't have any relevance here. These are not monks. I wonder. So we can try and do something a little bit different for this character. Question is, do we want to continue that type of theme and just switch up the style? I think about this. That kind of style of armor design doesn't really fit this particular race. Maybe we can leave it like that and do fatigues again. Maybe unlike, I think, every other one of these, we can actually have these going down to maybe about the lower calf and have kind of like higher armored boots that cut off about here. So these would be kind of like loose, not necessarily baggy, but kind of more loose fatigue-like pants. And then we could even put some patterning on them, kind of like we did over here. And for the actual boots, keeping in line with the whole kind of insect-like texture. Let's see. What have we done on the other ones? Yeah, Iconics here. Iconic says, sorry I'm late. You're not late. I've said before, you folks, you tune into the streams when you can and when you want to. There's no expectation that you show up at any time, be it start, middle, end. I'm never going to tell people, hey, how come you weren't here when we started? So I don't want you apologizing, Iconic, or anybody else that joins for that matter. You folks come and hang out when you can and when you feel like it. And if you got other stuff you need to do or whatever, that's perfectly fine. I'm here for you folks, not the other way around. I've had to tell Sour Lad who mods for my channel and Wazzy's to make sure that he is not rearranging his life schedule just for mod duties for streamers. I said you jump on and mod when you can, and if you're busy and you have school, work, life in general, that's perfectly fine. And the same thing goes for all you folks that tune in. Iconic says, I'm OCD is all. Well, I don't want you to worry about it. Alright? I'm grateful to all the Space Bees that show up. And Iconic says, how are you? Oh, I'm good. I was telling Red Dragon earlier, I didn't wake up minutes before the stream today, so that's good. I'm finding that around this time of year, my sleep schedule starts to get worse. I tend to sleep very little during the week, and then as a result, I pay for it on the weekend. So I've been actively trying to improve my sleep schedule slowly so that I'm not waking up in the afternoon almost on a Saturday, which it just does happen a lot. That's alright. I just set a very loud alarm. Iconic says, wishing a good sleep. Oh, I appreciate that. It's really my own fault. I've got no one to blame but myself. I'm just busy with a lot of things. Man, it doesn't help that I start at the Earth job at 6 in the morning every day. Alright, let's see what kind of patterning we want for these sort of high boots. gonna do something like that. Iconic says sleep schedules can be rough. Yeah, I feel like even though it was more tiring and stressful overall, back when I was having to drive to my office to work, you know, several days a week instead of being able to work remotely post pandemic and during pandemic, my sleep schedule was more consistent. Like I'd be more tired, I think, just because I'd have to spend time on the road and whatnot. But it was forcing me to have a more acceptable sleep schedule because you can't get 2 hours of sleep, wake up and drive to work. Or you can, but you might fall asleep and cause an accident. So while it is nice I don't have to drive to my office because my office closed and moved considerably farther away from where I live, as a result, my sleep schedule has become permanently terrible. Which is no excuse. It's not a good reason. But I'm working on it. Alright, let's zoom out and take a look at what we got here. And what I could do, just so I don't forget if I come back to this one later. No, let's make it lighter. Just fill it in just so I don't forget that it was supposed to be like a shirt covering the entire upper body. I have to redo the texturing on it, which is fine. Alright, so we'll compare. That didn't take too long. Didn't take too long to sketch out. That's number 4. We have a slightly different take on, I guess, less armor, now that I think about it. Maybe something like a kind of light or scouting armor build for number 4 here. A bit less heavy. But keeping with the same kind of insect-like theme across the different styles of armor, which is going to be consistent across all the concepts for this particular character. Oh, I see. Iconic is redeemed to hydrate. Alright. And I'll drink some more of my smoothie before I switch to Gefuel. Let's do another one. Like I said before at the start of the stream, I want to do several of these. Depending on how long it takes, maybe do 6. Get up to 6. And see how long that takes. Debated whether or not I wanted to spend the entire stream today on just this character or the other one. The one that's further along. So we'll see how long it takes and then we'll maybe jump and work on the female character some too. That's this one. Over here, we got a fully lined, inked, and color shaded version character we did a while ago now. Be kind of cool to do another outfit. So we'll see. Iconic says hydration is important, and so are you. I try and keep hydrated. Fortunately, temperature is dropping a little bit where I live. I think we're starting to get into fall officially now, which is good. And it's not quite so hot in my office where I stream. It got a bit toasty during the peak part of summer. Speaking of my office, for those who might not follow everything I say or do on Twitter, last week before the jam stream, I posted a picture of what my stream setup looks like when I have my synthesizer hooked up. My normal streaming setup is the same, just without that giant freaking keyboard hooked up. But I have a bit of a compact layout because my desk that I have everything set up on is not massive. But Wazzy was saying she didn't like the orientation of my monitors because they're not flush. They're all sort of at different distances because my main, which is actually my oldest monitor, and I've considered thinking about replacing it. It's just going to be expensive. My main monitor, the one directly in front of me that I'm currently looking at now, is my drawing tablet. And whenever I do streams like this, I have to move it in order to slide it in position and actually work on. And so it's constantly being pulled out and then pushed back. It's never in one spot for any given amount of time. And it works fine. This is a Cintiq 22, I think, 22 HD. I've had this thing for almost a decade now. It was very expensive, and it works perfectly fine. It has a dead pixel, which I try not to pay too much attention to. If you look at you guys obviously can't see it because it's a monitor display, but if I were to just draw a circle right here on the canvas, this part of my monitor has a dead red pixel, which doesn't bug me too much. But the problem is, because this monitor is a lot older, its output levels are different from a lot of modern like LED or flat screens. I don't know the specifics. I'm not a graphics person really, but the color levels and resolution are a little bit different because this thing is older. It's much older. And so my main monitor quality normally when I'm not drawing or doing stuff like this is a little bit lower than the others, but it's not enough to really bug me. Ideally, if I had more space, I would probably, and a new graphics card, what I would do is I would put this tablet on like an arm that I can swivel out of position when I'm not drawing, and then just get a fourth monitor as my main that is just kind of like static. But I don't think I have enough space to do that. I think 3 monitors is the limit of my desk. If you look at that Twitter picture, there's not really room for anything else on it. Red Dragon says, I'm looking to change my layout around again. That's one thing I don't really do. Once I get a setup that works and is efficient for whatever I'm doing, be it regular project stuff or streaming, I don't mess around with it just because I have to readjust everything. I know Pink saw my picture or my layout, and they were asking me why I have a vertical monitor. The left one in the screenshot I posted was, I don't know what the dimensions are. It's probably like a 21, maybe a 21 inch. But it's a vertical, like tilted, perpendicular 90 degrees. And that's my chat and or Discord monitor. Or if I'm not streaming or doing anything that involves monitoring people talking to me, I'll put reference pictures for things like drawing. I'll put them on that third monitor so I can look at them. So I have vertical monitor for chat, Discord. I actually have Discord and Twitch chat taking up the top and bottom half. I just have them minimized and not full screen on that monitor so I can see you guys talking. And if anyone yells at me in Discord for whatever reason, I can see it there too. My main, which is this monitor I'm working on right here, is for drawing. If I'm gaming, I'm looking at this one. That's another reason why I can tell that this one's older. Things aren't quite as sharp just because I think the resolution and output settings aren't as modern, and it's just an old display, but it works fine. And then my third monitor on the right, you can, it doesn't matter where I'm looking, but I'm looking at it now. I put all of my diagnostic stuff over there. So OBS, the BGM playlist in VLC, anything else that I'm not actively looking at all the time, I will put on my third monitor. So if OBS starts wigging out, or like the stream starts to crash or glitch out, I can just look over here and see. And so that's my setup. And the feng shui might not be the most pretty or aesthetic, but that's fine. I never show people my workstation setup unless I'm talking about something significant like that synthesizer setup, just because people were curious. Red Dragon says vertical monitors are great for info screens. Yeah, that's why I use it. What I originally wanted that vertical monitor to be for would be like a lyric page for karaoke, but I wanted it to be behind everything. So either bolted to the wall, which I don't think I can technically do. That would have been more work, or vertically behind my middle monitor, so that if I was doing like a singing stream, I could be reading lyrics off of something that's directly in front of me and not have to look off to the side. But I can't do that, so it's off to the side anyway. And it still functions really good for chat. So if I had more space or a wider desk, I would, and a graphics card that could do it, I would set up a fourth monitor like behind and maybe just attach it to the wall for stuff like that. But that would be a luxury, not a necessity. I get by perfectly fine with 3, which is probably more than the average person who uses a computer has anyway. But it'd be really cool. Iconic says, you do what's best for you. Yeah, I have a pretty good system worked out, but if I had infinite money and resources, 5 screens, it'd be like one of those like techno wizard chambers you see in sci-fi where someone is sitting at a computer console and they just have like a whole grid of screens in front of them. That would be sweet. Or you guys ever see, I don't know if they still sell them now, it's been a while and I can't imagine they're sustainable in this economy, but you guys ever heard of the Emperor Scorpion chairs? They're kind of touted as like these elite, quote unquote, elite gaming setup things. Let me see if they still sell them. I think, I see a bunch of models similar to what I'm thinking of, but I think the actual company, is it this one? They changed their name? Oh no, okay, they still exist. It's MWE Labs. Yeah. Okay, maybe they changed their name. Here, let me link this in the chat for you folks. You want to talk about gamer luxury? When you pop into the page, you can see like their base workstation setup, and if you scroll down, you can actually see their like Scorpion chairs. Which the base one, it looks like $5,000 USD. I swear it used to be like 10. It could have been the one that actually has the PC built into the chair. This is just the chair. but it's a really fascinating design. I wonder how comfortable that chair is, but the idea that you have this big thing that suspends your monitors in front of you, I think would be pretty cool. It wouldn't necessarily work for artists though, because you can't set like a drawing tablet on something like that and draw on it. You would have to have it be like externally put on like another freestanding arm or something that you could put into place. You couldn't have it mounted like that. I don't know. I don't have a real efficient way to set something like that up, and it wouldn't really work for the type of content I do. Plus, I'm not really down to spend 5K on something like that. It would look really cool. Like, put it in my living room and it'd be like a dedicated gaming setup, but it's not necessary. I don't even do a lot of high-end PC gaming on, because they had another one. Maybe they don't do it anymore because no one was buying it. They had a one that actually moved, and this one looks like it has settings. Like there's like a hydraulic bit at the back, and I think it probably can raise and lower the arm angle. But they had one that was automated, like you push a button, kind of like supervillain style, and it would like tilt at different angles if you wanted to be like kind of tilted back or reclining in a different angle, and kind of like they have couches or like lazy boys that you push a button and like it reclines, or like a footrest comes out. They had features like that built into the actual freaking chair, and I'm pretty sure that's what made it so expensive. But yeah, I don't know anybody who owns one of these. Maybe one of like the big streamers has one. I don't know. Interesting idea. Iconic says, definitely seen that. Remember Google was hyping it up. They had those in the offices or something. Red Dragon says, your layout is better than mine. Like I said, like Iconic is set up top. You do what you got to do for your setup. It doesn't have to be elegant, as long as it's, I would say, as long as you just keep it clean. Like, don't become a hoarder. But as long as it's functional, it's all that matters. All right, what are we going to do for this one? Maybe go for a heavier style. Red Dragon says, I'll PM you my layout. Yeah, sure. I'll take a look at it. I won't critique it or anything unless you want me to, but I'm curious to see what other people do for their setups. Oh, okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I see you have your... and I won't get into specifics if you don't want me to, but... I don't normally see people with their PC towers on the table. But that looks like a pretty sturdy supported table. I'm going to assume there's no space underneath to put the tower without like hitting it with your feet. But you got a big second monitor. I'd like one. I'd like a main that size. Well, that's pretty functional. And then your drawing tablet in the front. I'm assuming you just slide that around whenever you need to draw stuff and then put it out of the way when you're not using it. A Dragon says my bedroom as well. Yep. My main office is set up in my bedroom, which also restricts some of my space, but yeah, no, it's a good setup. It looks really organized. I know mine's not that organized. Red Dragon says I have a dog, so no PC on the floor. That makes a lot of sense. You definitely want to be careful where you have like the main tower if you've got animals running around, dogs or cats. So I definitely hear you there. Maybe for this one we do something like this, where this part under here would be like a under, like maybe an armored shirt type deal. Thinking maybe we go for a heavier design on this one. We'll see. You take some cues from the first one that we have hidden underneath this one. And going back to the idea of like PC stream setups and whatnot, the thing that gave me the most heartburn when I was trying to get everything organized to do streaming and whatnot wasn't actually the layout of like all of the video. Essentially, it was the audio. And you folks who've been around here long enough know that the one thing I'm most paranoid about when it comes to streaming is the audio. And I've been told that my audio setup is really weird because I have different types of setups depending on what I'm doing. But I'm constantly paranoid that the audio is gonna get weird. But I think I have it dialed in pretty well now. I don't have to really mess around with stuff. Although when OBS updated, I had to go in there and tweak a bunch of settings. So it might be annoying if I'm constantly asking for feedback on the audio, but it's because it's the number one thing I worry about when I stream. I feel like for stream-based video and display type stuff, you get that dialed in. You don't really have to mess around with it. But if you screw up one setting on your audio devices, it can cause noticeable problems. My dragon says, yeah, sound is a real pain in the arse. It doesn't need to be. And if you don't have a weird setup like mine, it's probably a lot easier. Because if you just have, let's say, a static mixer that, your mic and everything else is plugged into, like a USB mixer device, a real simple one like a Scarlett, which is what I have everything hooked into now. You pretty much just adjust all the different levels depending on the mic that you've got to make sure people can hear you, it's clear, you're not getting any feedback. And depending on your room, if you have audio treatment, all that stuff is kind of extra. But when you have just a regular external mixer, everything's plugged in. As long as like your cables don't go out, you just find the settings where they're at and just leave it, and you're good. Problem is, I don't use just one mixer. I have a Scarlett, and if I'm doing gaming, drawing usually, or just chatting type stuff, you can expect that it's hooked in through there. But when I'm doing my jam streams, I have my loop station hooked up as a mixer instead. So my mic and my outputs and everything are hooked up to that device, and it's functioning like a Scarlett as its own mixer / mic / output device. And its settings and everything are all different because the way the loop station powers mics and output stuff is all different from a mixer. It's probably even more complex than I can understand. I'm not an audio engineer, but all the settings are different because I'm not just speaking into it. I'm, making funny mouth noises into the mic that's being affected by all the settings on the loop station. And so I have to have that very carefully dialed in because it's completely different from my regular one. And no one's mentioned that it sounds weird, so I think I have it figured out, but it is just another layer of complexity that I'm sure most streamers, unless they're a music streamer specifically, don't deal with. But it's fine. Being able to hook up a tool like the loop station and use that on jam streams is really fun. And I'm glad I can do that. It's just I gotta manage a little bit more and also make sure all the stuff in OBS, make sure all that stuff is synced up and doesn't get changed, because I swear the update reset my mic settings. I had to go back in and readjust it. But other than that, it's just streamer problems. It's not a big deal. All right. Let's look at the lower body now. I'm going to kind of go for a bit more of a funky, unusual design for this, and we'll see how it looks. Well, let's talk about streaming and setup. Reminds me, I don't think I have an equipment page on my channel here. I don't usually get questions about all of the hardware that I use, but I should probably do that for some of the equipment, like maybe just some of the video and audio. I can put my PC specs if you guys really want to see it, but I don't have a super high-end PC. I basically have some pretty decent, above average components built around a bunch of older components from like 2 builds. I think, can't remember which stream it was. It was one of Wazzy's where I was just watching, but everyone was having a good laugh at my graphics card, which is very old. And if the market wasn't just an absolute mess for buying a brand new one, I would have upgraded it a while back. But my graphics card is, I think, 10 years old, maybe more. But it works fine. It's actually working at half capacity because it wouldn't fit in the main slot, and we had to put it in the auxiliary when I built this machine. But I've rebuilt my PC twice using that same card just because it's a workhorse. It hasn't died on me, knock on wood. But I do want to replace it just so I can get something a bit more modern. But yeah, that's maybe when 23. We'll see. And the larger just comes down to price. I don't really want to pay $1,500 for a new graphics card. In case you missed that embarrassing stream, the one I'm using is a 970, so pre-1000 series. But it works for everything that I play, so I can't really complain. Interestingly enough, I do have a laptop for portable stuff from traveling or whatnot. That one has a really modern, pretty high-powered graphics card, and much better than my PC. But the processing power, RAM, and other specs aren't as strong, just because that's what I built into this latest PC build. So it's like I have a decently strong PC in every aspect but the graphics card. And then I have a pretty modern laptop. I bought it last year. That's pretty much top of the line on graphics cards, well above average on everything else, but like the other horsepower specs aren't as good as my PC. It's weird. I was telling a friend of mine that helped me put this one together. I said, until something requires that I have a high-end graphics card, I'm not worried about it. I said, is it going to run Monster Hunter and look okay? And he's like, oh yeah, definitely. I said, that's all I care about. But it would also be good to get something on the PC. It's a little bit up to date since it should improve the stream quality as well. I wasn't going to outright say that, hey, it'd be nice if I had a better graphics card so Vampire Survivors looks better, but I'd be lying if that wasn't part of it. All right, let's take a look at the other parts. The upper body and the arms now. We're talking about streaming and hardware and stuff. I'm not actually talking about what I'm drawing here, but I'm just sketching out ideas. There's not really a whole lot to talk about. Kind of build on the whole shell-like aesthetic here. These forearm guards. Well, let's see. Let's unhide this one. Similar style. This one, maybe we can make it a little bit more spiky. Iconic says, everything is looking great so far. Oh, thanks. We're just kicking around ideas. I think the majority, if not the entirety of today's stream is going to be sketching out ideas. Kind of brainstorming that'll set us up for next time. We'll do something like that. This one will go back to symmetry. Keep the same style on this arm. Like this particular armor set looks like it would be kind of like a soldier, some sort of maybe military type outfit, a heavy combat type. Now, lower body. What do I want to do for the lower body? Well, we're sketching stuff here. I guess I could take some time to kind of talk a little bit about upcoming plans for content. And we've talked a little bit about different ideas for things coming up. I still want to do Fighting Game Month. I've said it for the last like 3 months. I'm thinking possibly in November. And the reason for that is I want to devote October to Spoopy Month. So it's not going to be like a night and day difference, but for streams, and I haven't decided if I'm going to do any offline content for that, since that requires a whole bunch of recording and editing. But for the stuff we're going to be streaming for October is definitely going to be focused around like Halloween, thematically appropriate stuff. I think I mentioned on one of the previous ones, I think Breath of Fire, I said I was talking about doing Demon's Crest. That's maybe like a stream and a quarter. It's worth of content, so that wouldn't take up too much time. I definitely want to do that. It's a really awesome game. I could talk about at length. There's another game that I just found out about from a friend of mine because it came out, I think, this week. And it's called... Let me get the name real quick. I believe this is an indie game because it wasn't even on my radar. I hadn't even heard of it. Where are you? Iconic says there's the official Terrordrome to be spooky fighting games if you wish. That is true. I wouldn't be opposed to working in some more fighting game stuff that would be appropriate thematically. I think if I had a choice, I've always wanted to try Terrordrome, but I think it might require some setup in advance. But I kind of want to get back to Skullgirls again because there's some new stuff in that game now. And while it's not like a horror theme, I think there's some aspects of spoopiness that will be fun. So I don't know. I'll have to think about the fighting game side. Heck, you could even argue that a lot of the new KI stuff can be kind of spoopy adjacent. But the game I'm talking about is actually an FPS, which I've never played on the channel here because I really don't play FPS games. Competitive ones I suck at, which is why you don't see me playing things like Apex or Valorant. But non-competitive ones, occasionally I will play them. It's not my favorite genre, but like I really like Doom Eternal. And one of my older school favorite shooter games is Painkiller. But there's this new game that came out recently, again like last week, called Metal Hellsinger. I have to look at who these people are that created it, but basically it's like a wave-based first-person shooter game, kind of like Serious Sam or Painkiller or Doom, but the whole track list is metal. So like heavy slash death metal, and the whole thing syncs up what you're doing in the shooter mechanics to the beat. So it's kind of like Crypta the Necrodancer in like a first-person shooter with demons. It's very unique. And a friend of mine sent me some gameplay video, and he's like, yeah, this looks really cool. And I looked at it, I was like, that looks awesome, as a giant metal fan myself. And so I definitely want to look at that. I don't know how long it is or how much we've been playing, but it's a really cool idea. And it doesn't look like it involves a lot of like high speed reflexes, which is why I don't play shooters. But it looks like a really neat concept of marrying up badass music with like fast paced gameplay. So yeah, Metal Hellsinger. I encourage you to look it up. Iconic says, really interested in it and how it compares to BPM, bullets per minute, another beat-based shooter. Yeah, I saw a lot of people in the comments for the gameplay video comparing those two. Apparently, Metal Hellsinger was in development first, and the BPM people saw that and rushed their game out to get theirs on the street first. This is what someone was saying. I can't verify it. But it's a similar style to BPM, which I've never played, but I hear is really cool. The big draw for Hellsinger is like if you like metal and like that style of music, that's the entire soundtrack. And Red Dragon is correct. They have a free demo, so if you want to check out Hellsinger on PC, download the demo. I might do that when I get a spare minute just to try it out and see how it feels. But the same friend of mine, he's played. He said, yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think that'd be super fun to play on stream and try out. Assuming it'll run. I'm hoping it runs fine. If I can run Doom Eternal, I imagine I can run that. There's some pretty big names from known metal bands that are working on that too. Like I saw the main guy from Trivium is working on that. Serge Tankian from System of a Down is working on that in some capacity. So I think it's original songs made for the game, but it's all like heavy like rock and metal stuff, which that's right up my alley. So yeah, that's definitely on the list of things to try out in October. Red Dragon says, doing that now. Yeah, you have to let me know what you think when you try it out. I've heard good things, and I think it won like at Gamescom, I want to say, for like most anticipated game. It was pretty well received. So it's always cool to see people taking like genres and flipping them around and trying new things with them. I think that's awesome. Oh yeah, and I did see further up. Icon was talking about Darkstalkers for like Halloween month. Yeah, that's true. Icon says, "Love me, my boomer Doom shooters." Again, I'm not really an FPS player unless they are pretty simple in concept. Part of the problem is really fast motion first-person shooters make me dizzy. But as long as they don't do too much of that, or they're like not competitive, where I'm trying to out reflex other people, occasionally I'll look at them. Just depends. Like, to give you folks an idea, this is going to date me considerably, but the last competitive shooter I played, I think, was Quake 2. Didn't play Counter-Strike, the original Counter-Strike build. By that point, I decided I was not good at those games. But remember Quake 2 a long time ago. I did play Quake 1 with other people too, but we played a lot of 2. Some of you might not have even been born when that game was out, and that's okay. Red Dragon says, old man. I am very old. This is well-known and established lore. I try not to do the whole when I was your age thing, either ironically or unironically when I talk to you folks on stream, because honestly that would just make me even more of a boomer. But when it comes to gaming, I feel like I have some leeway to say that. I guess technically I did play Doom 2 multiplayer for a bit, but I didn't really get super into it. I played that one single player a lot more than any of the multiplayer. Okay, let's see what we can do for the lower leg armor in this section. Iconic says, look, back in my day, you had to beat Shenlong to stand a chance. Well, back in my day, fighting games didn't exist for a while. Unless you count some of the real primitive stuff on like Atari, but for... Is Joust a fighting game? Red Dragon asks, should I play Metal Hellsinger now or do a blind stream with it tomorrow? I don't know. Depends. How much you want to try the game out or make it content. You could always do both. You could always try it out just to make sure, you know, you understand the feel for it and stream it too. It doesn't necessarily need to be a blind reaction. Another game I thought about potentially doing for Spoopy Month, I don't think it's gonna fit the time frame, is Dead Space 2. That's one of my favorite games from the kind of action horror-ish genre. I like Dead Space 2 a lot, but that would take a long time to play through. We wouldn't get through it in a month, mixing it up with all the other stuff I'd want to do. So that would be the downside, because that's a long play type game, and there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in it. So I wouldn't want to just do like a one-off and say that was Dead Space. But I have that one on PC. That's a good game. Iconic says, yeah, Dead Space 1 and 2 are top tier. Love me RE4 in space. I think that's why I like it. You know, I've talked about it before when we played through RE4 here. RE4 is one of my favorite games, like of all time. Top 10 for me, probably. And Dead Space takes that whole concept of like action horror exploration. Not really survival horror-ish. It may be adjacent because it's a lot more fast-paced and focused on combat. But it takes that whole idea and, yeah, it is pretty much RE4 in space. That's why I like it. Makes you wonder if that new game that's coming out is going to be a canonical continuation of the story, because I didn't play 3. I heard 3 was kind of mediocre. But there's a new one. It has a weird name. I have to look it up. It's not called Dead Space 4, but people are kind of saying that it's like a fourth installment. But I don't know. Like I've not been following the development on that, and just recently I got a recommendation on YouTube to look at a trailer. It might have been a Gamescom trailer, and it looks interesting. I think it's set in the same universe. I just don't know if story-wise it's supposed to be connected. Iconic says them Necromorphs were very creepy for sure. I kind of like the idea of flipping the trope of shooters of You know, instead of shoot them in the head like zombies and whatnot, you have to take the limbs off. That was kind of a novel idea. I thought that was fun. And it is kind of interesting how the first weapon you get, the plasma cutter, is the best weapon in the game. Over on the Wooly Versus channel, right now, I think it might be almost done. Wooly and Reggie are playing through Dead Space 1 for the first time. I think both of them have never played it before. So it's been kind of interesting to see those two experience the game. I think I'm playing the 360 version. Experience that game with no context and going in completely unfamiliar. And then looking at the not so thinly veiled references to Scientology. That's also pretty funny. I'm hoping they get to Dead Space 2 next, because that game improves upon the original formula quite a bit. And I think narratively it's more interesting because Isaac actually talks. And you get kind of more of a character-driven thing, versus the first one, he's just a silent protag the entire time, being ordered around by other NPCs. Conic says, yes, the plasma cutter, the chainsaw of handguns. The best weapon being a construction tool is so funny. Yeah, I think it was the special edition of Dead Space 2 came with like a smaller scale replica of the cutter, just as like a plastic prop thing that came with it. I have that somewhere. I don't remember where it went, but that was kind of cool. It doesn't work. I don't think it has any actual like electronic bits, but it's like a replica of the actual model, just maybe 3/4 scale or something like that. But Dead Space is all well and good. You're fighting creepy space monsters that you have to dismember. And it's like, yeah, it's like space zombie aliens essentially, and then the babies show up. And then the stakes get so much higher. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be down for playing the second one at some point. It'd be like a long play thing, as opposed to like for Halloween. Well, that reminds me, thinking about games I have in my library that I have not played in a while, Killer 7 would also be a really good one for October, but that is not a game that you can finish quickly either. In fact, I'd play Killer 7 for you folks over Dead Space 2, because Killer 7 is higher up on my list of favorite games. Iconic says, I miss the days of Isaac being a guest character and stuff, given he was sort of a PlayStation mascot. That's sort of. They did a really interesting media push for Dead Space. Like, they really went all in for a while. Yeah, like the games, comics, Extraction was the rail shooter, I think. And then I think 3 sort of killed the franchise. So we'll see with the new one. But yeah, I haven't thought about when I want to do Killer 7. For a while I was focused on doing God Hand. And Killer 7 is a game I got into around the same time as God Hand back in the day. So I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I have a lot to say about that game too. I have it on PC, so it'll be real easy to stream. It's like the HD version that they released a couple years ago. I bought that outright and said I'm going to play it at some point. And I imagine it'll be a much better experience than playing it on the PS2 with the god-awful load times. Now they just need to release Shadows of the Damned, a more obscure Grasshopper type games. I never actually beat that one. That was a very unusual game, but it was interesting. Good old Suda 51. I should probably write out like like a content roadmap or something, so I don't forget what all these things are that I'm talking about. I think after Breath of Fire 2 is done, I think the next series I'm going to play through, it's going to be a longer investment, is the Blaster Master Zero franchise. I'll be skipping to modern, quote-unquote, modern gen, since those games are a lot newer, but I've been talking about it, and I think it'd be really fun to play through 1 again, 2 again, and I've never played 3 because that came out last year and I missed it. So that's probably going to take Breath of Fire's spot. Iconic says, almost forgot we're getting Lollipop Chainsaw Remake. Hopefully that's good. I never played the original. That's a Grasshopper 2, right? That's another one of those I missed. That one and Killer is Dead, which I do own on PC when they released that definitive edition. I've not played either of those, but I've heard they're very good. Now give us No More Heroes, the collection on PC. Just do it, you cowards. Alright, let's take a look at this one. This one is number 5. And clearly I didn't put that number 1 on. What layer did I put that on? Put it on this one. I don't know why that's there. Let's do this. You know what I have not done? The entire hour and a half I've been streaming, I have not saved once. That's not good. We're going to save our work. Iconic says, gotta finish Killer is Dead when I can. I heard that game was really fun. I heard good things about it. I just never got a chance to play it. Iconic, as redeem save reminder. Yes, I've just saved. Hold that thought for like another 40 minutes. And Iconic has redeemed to hydrate and stretch. I'll drink more of my Gafuel. Iconic says save again. Okay. Clip Studio won't let me save again unless I do something. So there we go. We've saved our work. Alright, let me number these so I can keep track of them easier. We'll do another one. This is 4. This is 5. So now we hide 2. And move our reference. We have a stray line. Oh, it's over here. There you go. Yeah, while we're starting up another one of these, the main reason I talk about it on stream every once in a while as far as content plans and the roadmap is primarily to get feedback from all of you that tune in and hang out from time to time. I try and take a pulse of what you guys are interested in seeing. Obviously, I could choose to stream whatever I want and just have it be about whatever I want to do. But if I think something is going to be something people are going to be interested in, that'll definitely push it up in the priority, which is why I like pinging things off of you folks and just saying, here's some things I'm looking at. Which of these sounds interesting to you? And so thanks for giving me feedback on stuff like that. I should probably put a poll up once I have the Discord running, which I am still working on the Discord. I know I said I'd have it done by end of summer, but a lot of my time has been spent working on the Halloween music project. But there'll be like a feedback and maybe like a poll section for things in Discord that we can use to sort of gauge interest in different things as plans are coming up. This one's gonna be 6. Iconic says, "Happy to help in any way I can. Thank you for all you do." Oh, that's really nice, Iconic. I appreciate it. I know my particular style of content, which I don't want to compare myself to other streamers or VTubers because it doesn't matter. But some people focus on specific games and they base their content, if they're a gaming streamer, around that type of stuff. Like maybe they're a Fortnite streamer, so they do a lot of Fortnite. Or they're like an Apex or Valorant player, so they primarily do that. My focus in streaming here on Twitch has been to kind of mix things up because I don't want to really get stuck in one type of content. But as a result, I think I draw people from all sorts of different interest groups, and they tune in whenever I'm doing something they're interested in, obviously. But it means I'm never securing one audience, which I think makes it harder to grow long term. But I think is better for just content long term because I could be for me, for example, I could do nothing but stream Monster Hunter. I love Monster Hunter. I could talk about Monster Hunter forever, and I could probably stream it 3 days a week if I really wanted to, but I don't think people would find that interesting. Maybe Monster Hunter people would, but honestly, I have so much to say about other games. I'd rather mix things up and have several different things going at once, which is why we have, Breath of Fire. It's why we spent so much time with Vampire Survivors or HoloCure. And that's why we're doing the Zero Mission Randomizer with Matt. I just like mixing things up. It creates a little bit more variety. And then in between the gaming stuff, we have occasional streams like this where we just sort of chill and draw things. Or the jam streams where, I try and make music with you folks. Or the chill streams where I rate things on a tier list and get canceled for my opinions. So the point was to be more variety as opposed to focus on one thing, just because I think that's more interesting. But I always welcome feedback. If you folks have ideas or have opinions about stuff, just let me know. Red Dragon says, Metal Hellsinger is very interesting. Like, how does the game feel? Like, is it pretty smoothly integrated with that whole like beats and combat? It looked pretty seamless when I was watching the demos of people playing it on YouTube. I don't know, Red Dragon. I don't know if you're a metal fan, but if you can speak on the actual music and soundtrack or what you think. I thought it was pretty interesting. Have you done a cutoff? We can do more cutoff one for this. Maybe something that cuts off right about here. Iconic says, yeah, I feel that I've tried a thing where I only stream games from my childhood or bad games. But, I mean, my totally real consoles don't always work right. Ah. That makes sense. Honestly, I think it doesn't matter what you stream as long as you find it interesting and you can make it interesting for people watching. You know, you could stream old school Pong, but if you have enough interesting things to say about it, then people will find a reason to watch. Iconic says, recently been streaming just Yu-Gi-Oh, but gonna try to stream Budokai 3 on the hardest difficulties if it works. Is that the one you were trying to beat? Or was that Budokai 2? I remember one stream I managed to catch, you were fighting, I think, one of the end bosses on the hardest difficulty. Was that 2? It looked hard, whatever game it was. It looked frustrating. Oh, maybe it was Budokai 1. Okay. I think I own one of the Budokais on PS2. I don't remember which one. It'd be nice if there were easier ways to get some of the older stuff running on emulator. I think the emulator that Matt referred me to for the advanced stuff that we've been doing with Zero Mission, that one is like an all-in-one, and it's used by TAS speedrunners, and it's pretty handy. You just have to find the ROMs. And I really don't like sifting through the kind of shady ROM sites and risking my computer getting herpes. But for the stuff that I have and have accumulated over the years from old school platforms, that EmuHawk runs all of that. I don't know what it stops at, but it runs a whole bunch of the old school platforms, which is great. So we can do more advanced stuff. We can do, technically it does DS games too, but the interface is weird. If I can get Bleach DS second running on that thing, then we are going to probably devote a lot of time to playing that game. Well, I don't really care about Bleach. I played that second fighting game a lot on DS. It is one of the best fighting games I have ever played. Iconic says, I like 2, but the story mode takes forever normally, so on hard it probably will take forever, so I'm just skipping it to 3. Ah. Yeah, in fact, now that I actually haven't tried to see if I could find a ROM for Bleach DS Second, now that I have that new ROM or emulator client, I should look into that. For Fighting Game Month, that would be something I try and get running. I've talked about Bleach DS Second so many times on stream. And if you're any sort of fan of 2D fighting games, it's definitely a worthwhile title. Because normally fighting games don't turn out too well on handhelds. That's just the history. But that game, which is a treasure game, if you can imagine, the shooter people that did like Ikaruga and all those, that they made a fighting game. They made 2 of them, and it was really good. It's kind of similar to like kind of Guilty Gear-ish, but there's a whole like air dashing mechanic mapped to a button, and you have to push a button to block like Mortal Kombat, and there's different 3D planes like a Fatal Fury game. Very unique, but had a huge cast of characters. Again, I haven't cared about Bleach in years, but it had a massive pool of characters that all played really differently. It's a good game. Me and my friends played a lot of local, and it had online multiplayer or online versus mode too, which is really unusual for a game that era. We played a lot of matches of Bleach. Iconic says, yeah, Budokai 1 on hard was fun but brutal. I bet. It's pretty much fighting game AI, right? I'm talking about like input reading, insane AI that reacts to everything you do, just like a fighting game. Iconic says, yeah, plus there were some harsh conditions at times. I see, like mission parameters that restrict your options. That sounds like a fighting game too. Look, I said this when we were playing Cyberbots, and I stand by it. When it comes to fighting game type boss encounters, there's no shame in resorting to cheap tactics, because that's what the computer's doing. Is it honorable? No. Does it matter if it's honorable? Definitely not. Iconic says, my favorite being Goku fighting a mental image Vegeta where you have a single life bar, meanwhile they have full 3 health bars. Oh sure, and you can throw in things like the computer gets regenerating super meter, or regenerating health. It's meant to be hard, but some of the difficulty levels of challenge get pretty bananas. Iconic says, absolutely Shao Kahn deserves no respect. Oh yes, I remember playing MK9 and X Shao Kahn was really stupid hard. I think you could cheese the one in X. I can't remember 11. I haven't played that game in forever. But one of the ones I remember from back in the day, again, we've talked about fighting games, and I don't play Tekken, but it was Tekken 5. I don't remember which Tekken it was on PS2, but the end boss, I'm just gonna freaking look it up so I don't sound like an idiot. I think his name was Jinpachi. What game was that? Tekken 5, it looks like. According to the wiki. Introduced in Tekken 5, unplayable final boss. Yeah. Watching my friend play through on, I don't even remember what difficulty mode it was, but the final boss was this character named Jinpachi, and he was just ridiculously busted and stupid. And it took my friend like 4 hours to beat him. Those Bamco guys, they like putting some pretty difficult final bosses. Like Soul Calibur 3, I think, was Night Terror. That was also really stupid. That one took me forever to beat. Iconic says, Jinpachi is brutal. Jin says, stop praying for Grandpa, he is too powerful. I just remember a lot of like cheap moves and like things that would insta combo you into oblivion. And I remember just watching my friend try and beat it and going, man, that's rough, buddy. Iconic says, yeah, Night Terror was a dick, especially since Abyss was kind of a pushover. I haven't thought about the Soul Calibur final bosses in a while. I do remember that one being exceptionally difficult, though. as the world continues to wonder if we'll ever see another Soul Calibur game again. I don't know. I keep saying it was a miracle we got Soul Calibur 6. That was a good game. It's a miracle we got Soul Calibur 6 because 5 should have buried the franchise. In fact, everyone thought 5 had buried the franchise. It's a shame because mechanically 5 was a pretty good game. Its presentation was good. Mechanically it played fine. It's just the characters and the story were absolute garbage. And I know people have made the argument of, you don't play fighting games for the story or characters. Sometimes you do. And Soul Calibur, it's kind of important. Or at the very least, don't retcon the majority of the cast into obscurity and put their children in. That's generally not going to go over too well with people who have an attachment to the original cast. Trying to figure out a different design to do with this shoulder guard here. Like, if you want to take fighting game, cast of characters, and then introduce like a kind of canonically next generation type deal, I feel like Mortal Kombat did that the best, the ones I can think of. Because like in MKX, they introduced like Cassie Cage and Jackie Briggs, and they had their parents there still, but they also made the new characters similar to their parents but unique. So they weren't just like pasting the moveset of the parent characters onto their kid and saying, this is the character now. They made it like an actual logical continuation of like tropes, and they made them interesting. I think those characters were pretty interesting to watch in the story and whatnot in the Mortal Kombat games. Soul Calibur 5 did not do that well. It took the movesets and pasted them over the child characters and then made the child characters not interesting in the least. Iconic says, can't wait for the Team Toxicure fighting game. Who would the different characters be in a Team Toxicure fighting game, and what would their fighting game archetype be? That's the question. We can workshop this right now on stream and then charge Wazzy for the concept information later because she's not here. Like, obviously she's the main character, so it would be like her story. But what would her fighting character archetype be? Would she be like a Shoto? Would she be like the Ryu of her own game? Iconic says Wazzy and Matt are the Shotos. So you would put Matt as her like adversarial character? I don't know if I would necessarily set it up that way. I think Wazzy and Pink should be the Shotos because they would be like the Ryu Ken relationship, not necessarily Wazzy and Matt. Matt would be a grappler. I think Matt would be like the Zangief type of the game. You think about the rest of the extended cast of characters. Iconic says, you give off Rushdown character for sure. Who, me? You think I would be Rushdown? You don't think I would have like a weird resource or meter management mechanic? Because I think for my character, it would be like buff states, like different buff states around songs. Maybe kind of like Big Band, but not quite as like heavy. Because I wouldn't say I'm a heavy type. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't be a zoner. I cannot play zoners at all. That says Plups is a zoner. Plups would be either zoner or like trap hazard mechanics, I think. Maybe something akin to like, actually, I don't know what New School Testament plays like because I haven't played them in the new Guilty Gear, but something that manipulates the field is like kind of Plups energy. Constant management of the surroundings and danger and traps. Iconic says beatboxing stance. You know who would be probably a stance character? Froggy. I think Froggy would be a stance character. He strikes me as the type to kind of have ways to adapt to dealing with different things. And I say that just because his ability to read people and mess around with people and exploit their weaknesses is definitely something I would see. And I'm really struggling with getting this forearm guard. I'm definitely not feeling this weird sort of blade thing. It looks like it's pasted on. Iconic says Bits would rule the air in Okies. Yeah, I think Bits would fit well as like a flight stance character. Maybe something like Tianhuo from Them's Fighting Herds. Plus, you know, Burb thematically. Now for Ramen, he could be like a distance or zoner type too. I'm thinking like a take on Kon Ra from Killer Instinct. Instead of like mummy bandages, you could do like noodles and like traps and full screen type stuff. I think that would be thematically appropriate for Ramen. I apologize for the non-fighting games people that are listening to this conversation, but you can blame Iconic for bringing up a Team Toxic Your fighting game. We're essentially printing money here. If we could find someone who can program. And I think it'd be really funny, not necessarily as like a joke character, but I just mean like a legitimate mechanics if Banani was a grappler. And I think we all know why. Grappler or a command throw based character. Iconic says Vor grapples for sure. Yeah, kind of like a furry lady fox version of Shuma Gorath from MVC. And let's see, who else was from the crew I could think of that I know. Takuno, maybe make him like Jury from Street Fighter. Lots of kicks and feet things. Because, haha, running jokes. This shoulder's giving me problems. I might just leave it and come back. Need to keep going. Iconic says Tekuno is definitely the jury. Whether he likes it or not. Iconic says we of course need an evil or robot version of Warzy. Yeah, I'm thinking like Robo Kai or was it Neko Arc from Melty Blood? Or both. I could do both. You know what I think would be a good character archetype to base off of for Matt? Iron Tager from Blaze Blue. He is like a close range heavy like grappler, but he has like the magnet mechanics, so it's not just straight like Zangief archetype. It's like a lot more crazy manipulation stuff in addition to just the close range throw stuff. You wanna kind of distinguish from the character archetypes. You go Iron Tager for Matt. Plus he's red. Red Dragon says timing on Metal Hellsinger and trying to keep eyes out for mechanics are not forgiving. Oh, interesting. So you have to kind of be on top of monitoring where you're at and what the game is telling you to do. How hooked in is the being on beat? From what I saw, you're not required to do that, but I think you get bonuses for being like on beat and for doing things in sync with the music. Like, how is that implemented? All right, let's go down to the lower body here. We could do a coat. We haven't done a coat yet. This would be like a waist coat almost. Maybe something that's inset into the waist part right here. Put the back of the coat as a placeholder there. We could even do kind of lower leg fatigues into boots. So here's a question going back to the idea of a Team Toxic fighting game. I'm gonna tell Warzy we talked about this. That way she knows that she's gonna owe us money for these ideas. What would the final boss be? The broken final boss that eats your quarters and forces you to spend 2 hours trying to find a cheap abusable mechanic. Red Dragon says it's like looking at a screen as a huge TV is on behind it and music is great. Okay. That's cool. Again, sounds like if you're geared towards metal, hard rock, then Hellsinger is going to definitely be up your alley, which, again, I'm down. Boss-wise, Red Dragon says Great Worm. What if it was like a giant full-screen Hydra, but instead of, like snake heads, it's worms on a string? Like different colors, different like expressions, different personalities. Iconic says keeps changing shape like Abyss in MVC2. Yeah, and like the final version is like a humanoid worm with like JoJo attacks. All right. And Red Dragon says a new mechanic for each worm head. Yeah, like some might shoot fire or inflict a debuff or an ailment state like paralysis or saps your meter. Again, we're printing money live on stream here, folks. Maybe I'll look at the VOD later, and maybe I can clip this and put it on YouTube for posterity. Then there'll be proof that Wazzy owes all of us money. All right, before we wrap up this one, I'm going to go and fry some chicken real quick. In the meantime, I want the collective brain power of chat to think about the style of fighting game that the Team Toxiker fighting game would emulate. It'd either be a combination of existing franchises, you know, like a Guilty Gear or BlazBlue or Street Fighter, or something unique, but I want to see some ideas for that, since that'd be important for the pitch. So I'm going to leave everything here, but I'll be back in 1 minute. All right, I'm back. Iconic says for the game type in style, MVC for sure. 3v3. So would you want straight up 3v3 standard, or would you want a CVS style set your allocation and ratio, which you can also do in Skullgirls, sort of. You can do 1v1, 2v1, or 3v3, and the strength of the character depends on how many characters you select. So the question would be, if you were doing that, would you want to be able to adjust the ratio, or would it just be standard 3v3 no matter what? Iconic says probably the simpler one. Problem with doing 3v3 is you have to have a big cast. You have to have a lot of people in order for it to fill out 3v3 teams. And thinking of all the people affiliated with the Team Toxicure brand, I suppose you could do it, but you probably have to start pulling in like people that aren't, regulars, but people Wazzy knows, and that'd be tougher. Because if you're gonna do if we're talking about an indie fighter, let's not just assume it's gonna be, we have a Marvel vs. Capcom budget. So you'd be pulling in other people, but people you might not necessarily know as well, and that'd be difficult to kind of invent for like styles and archetypes, because like you could pull in people like Draconi, who I don't know very well, but I know is one of Ramen's really good friends. You have other people like Rue or Reina and people I don't know as well. So it kind of depend if you're doing a versus one. Iconic says Proton John, yeah. A lot of it would be developing kind of the mechanics and themes for all of those characters. So it'd be potentially a big roster, which would be tough to do in an indie operation. But another question would be, what is the gameplay style? Are we talking like heavy combo based, like Marvel vs. Capcom, or is it going to be more like an SNK game where it's less huge strings of combos and more about inputs? And then from there, you start getting into things like, how are the supers implemented? Are you looking at Marvel vs. Capcom button input plus 2 buttons? Or are you doing like the Arc System Works thing where you have to do a million different motions in order to get a super to come out? Or same thing with an SNK game? Probably a simpler option, like Iconic was mentioning. Is there assists? If you're doing like a 3v3, let's assume you had a big enough roster for a 3v3. Is it assist based? Can you call in character assists? Are there like team supers, all that stuff? Like all those things are additional bits to consider as far as the complexity in implementing. And you start getting into like the real technical stuff, like are there guard cancels? Are there perfect just input frames for blocking? We talk about like guard cancels or things like alpha counters. Do you put in like a burst system like the Arc System games? A lot to consider for a fighting game. Might not be obvious, but I've always dreamed about creating my own fighting game, but I don't have the technical knowledge to like code or the capital to really start a project like that. There was a time where I wanted to get into like custom character creation in Mugen, since it's a pretty free form system to be able to mess around with stuff like that, but I can't create sprites. Not in animation. I can create static sprite art, but animation stuff I don't really know how to do. Iconic says true, still fun to think about. Oh yeah. It's a pitch for an idea, and you never know. You never know when an opportunity might present itself. Iconic says, yeah, it'd be cool to do Mugen stuff. It seems like it's not the simplest thing to get into. Probably simpler than creating coding infrastructure and from the ground up and just creating your own game, but it seems like in order to get stuff to work, you have to really understand how the engine works and make sure all your assets are properly set up to import and whatnot. Again, I looked into it a long time ago, and it scared me. It was like learning another friggin' language. But they had that other was it Fight Game Maker or whatever? It's an engine designed for creating fighting games. It was what the main six people were originally using for their pony game before it got cease and desisted. I've always wanted to look at that too, because that might be a better avenue for starting from the ground up, but I know even less about that. I've just heard of it. So until an option like that presents itself, my plan is to just one day win the lottery and hire a team. It's a solid strategy. All right, let's take a look at our code here and try and shore up some of the details. Fix the arm a little bit here. It's a little bit too low. You know, still sort of lingering on the idea of fight games and fight game ideas. I just had something occur to me as I was just drawing these last bits out of the blue. I think a really funny alternate character, maybe for like the Neko Arc version of Wazi, would be a puppet type character that summons her cats, Tattle and Tail, and like Carl Clover style can control them on the field. Or maybe something like Palm from Them's Fighting Herds, where you put the cats out and you can make the cats do things like tackle the enemy, lock them down, or hit them with projectiles. I am terrible at puppet type characters. It's easily my worst archetype. But I feel like that has to be built into the game somewhere, since Wazi's cats feature heavily. They're a big part of her life, obviously. But I think we've definitely come up with good ideas. It is an interesting concept pitch. Keep an eye out for the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for the Team Toxker game. What would it be called though? It would need to have like a really catchy title that really conveys the ideas and themes of the property and brand. I'm actively thinking for ideas. It'd have to be something with alliteration. Iconic says Toxic here, shut up and jam. That would get us sued, Iconic. Well, it would be funny. It would definitely be infringing on an existing property. I'm thinking like a title and then a subtitle, because all good fighting games have like a title and then a something underneath. So it'd be like Toxicure Throwdown underneath, like Wazi's Wrath, for alliteration purposes. Oh, also, again, thinking about ideas, maybe it's like an optional or secret boss, but there needs to be at least one scripted boss encounter in the game where you fight a dilly bar. It has to be in there. It's part of the lore. Like maybe secret boss, or maybe like an alternate ending boss, but there needs to be some sort of manifestation where you fight a dilly bar. Has to be in there. Iconic says Toxicure presents Swear Up and Square Down. That is definitely on brand. What if it was Toxicure presents Kick Names and Take Ass? That's one of her mottos, right? Instead of breaking a car, break a dilly bar minigame. No, you have to actively fight it. It's got to be an actual fight encounter. See, the problem with doing Kick Names and Take Ass is I don't think you can really put ass in a title. I think that would get you into branding trouble. Now, that could be the name of an attack, like a super. Hey, first time chatter from Roman Ansari 2003. Hello. Welcome to the drawing stream. We are doing concept sketches for the character study here. In what might be landmark productivity. I've actually done 3 of these today. That might be a new record. Roman says I was a bit lurking. I gotcha. So you heard us talking about a fictional fighting game for like the last a portion of the last half hour, I imagine. If you don't know any of the context behind that, I imagine the conversation might have been a little confusing, so apologies for that. But that's okay. Maybe the last 10 minutes. I gotcha. Usually when I'm just sketching out things, I have to find things to talk about, so it's not dead silence for all you folks hanging out in the chat. Roman says I was searching for references. Oh, you mean references for the stuff we were talking about? I see. Hey, Red Dragon is back. Red Dragon says, finish the demo and now have a full review. Okay. Put your thoughts in chat about what you thought. Red Dragon was trying out Metal Hellsinger, which is a rhythm-based FPS shooter. Ah, Roman says, know what I want to sketch. Ah, I see. So you're an artist too. Very good. All right. Let's take stock of what we've done so far. Roman says, a beginner, I would say. Ah, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's got to start somewhere. And using references as a basis for learning and understanding drawing stuff is really important. Some people discourage that, but I say using references to learn basics is good, and then you evolve your own style as it goes. Just, don't rip anybody off and you're good. Now, why? This does not need to be here. This should be here. Okay. Let me put a number on this one. This is number 6. So far today, we have created 3 new concepts for male character outfit. 4, 5, and 6 here. They're not in order because I'm working on top of our original layer. We've got 1 and 2 hidden underneath. But keeping on the idea of kind of a mix of armor and clothing, we've got a mix of moderate to more kind of heavily armored, I'd say. The least being number 4 over here. And the most being probably 5 of these ones we can see on screen. Roman says, I got character designs done, and most people I show them liked my stuff, so I guess I'm doing something right. That's good. Starting with basic character designs and kind of like a rough structure for stuff is a pretty good way to just get ideas together, and then you take those ideas and flesh them out into, fully formed concepts. That's essentially the exercise we're going through here, so same deal, right? Start with a basic idea, and then you keep building on it until you get something that's fully developed. Roman says, I made a character with armor, and it wasn't easy. Armor is not an easy thing to design. It's one of my favorite things to draw, but it took a lot of practice in coming up with a mix of interesting and practical. Again, doesn't need to be realistic if realism is not what you're going for. But as far as creating something that, it's not going to look impossible, that's kind of the middle ground. I think I got a lot of my armor ideas from Monster Hunter, which I need to be careful not to fall into tropes that are actively ripping off something that exists in that universe. Roman says, I mostly just brainstorm when I'm alone for 2 years, I think. Yeah, I hear that. The idea of coming up with ideas, putting them down. My deal is I have to either get an idea onto the canvas here or write it, or I will forget, and then it'll be lost. Okay, let's cycle back. Before we wrap up for today, let's cycle back through everything we've done and do kind of like a comparison, and we'll do them in order. And starting with the character heads in the background, we'll eventually zero in on one to use for the character. But looking back at the designs, again, taking armor slash clothing ideas, we started with one, sort of set a template for the style. Let's see, Roman asks, do you like ridiculous design concepts? I think there should be no limit on design concepts. It's just largely going to come down to what the final product is going to be. So, you know, depending on what you're designing, it can be something that's really out there and ridiculous, or it could be something more grounded in realism. It just depends on what you're going to use a character for. So I like really off the wall creative designs. They might be difficult to put into play for something like an animation or like a comic or manga, but as an idea, if it really fits the character and you can find a way to implement it, then yeah, I think really, really outlandish designs are interesting to think about. Rowan says, like a female knight who fights with hand puppets. Yeah, I think you could turn that into a really neat concept. Think about it this way. I don't know if you know much about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but the idea of a ridiculous concept for a character is pretty much the premise of the entire franchise. You know, nothing is too insanely outlandish for JoJo. Like, you know, you have a weather tower that is an antagonistic force in character and it has its own set of attacks. That's pretty out there. But not for JoJo. So if you can take that concept and make it work, then I say you run with it because it'll be a lot more interesting. All right, Red Dragon's thoughts on Metal Hellsinger. Overall, I rate the game 7 out of 10. Great game. Art, music, and mechanics are all great. Some mechanics I haven't seen in other games, and I think they're good. Downside of the game is the timing of the beat is the heart of the game, and if you're bad at timing, you're going to have a lot less game continue lives, but I highly recommend everyone should try it. Cool. Thanks for being the test case while we were discussing stuff on stream here, Red Dragon. I'm going to probably download the demo this weekend. If I have time, I want to try it out and just explore the game a bit so that, you know, if we do that one for Halloween month in October, I'll not be going in completely cold. But definitely cool that you like it. That's that lines up with other things I've heard from people who've tried it out. The game we're discussing is called Metal Hellsinger. Demo out on Steam for sure. I don't know on other platforms, but if you like metal and you like shooters and like a rhythm game type of mechanic integrated with first person, then give it a try. I'm going to. Red Dragon says it's like if Beat Saber and Doom had a baby. Yeah, I hear a lot of people making comparisons to Crypta the Necrodancer, which definitely seems to fit too. But yeah, I'm gonna check it out. Looks like a fun time to play through, and we will put that on the list of content for October. All right, so I'm going back to the character list here. So you can see a progression and a mix of armor styles, clothing styles, and whatnot. If we hide these two and then we pull back up 5 and 6, the different ideas and combinations of like the armor styles have been kind of fleshed out a bit here. Again, one of the running themes of this particular character is that the race they're from is focused on like insect-like armor and concepts. It's tied into the lore and actually genetics of the characters. So I was going for kind of like a shell or shell-like plating type of design for all of these. It's the one main through line for all the different armor concepts. And I don't know if I have a favorite yet. I kind of like the mix with the coat on 6. That's different from all the other ones. Let's see, where is it? Number 1, I think, is a good start. Number 2 is alright as well. 3 boils the concepts down a little bit better. Right now, I'm thinking 5, 6, or 3. So I like elements from each of these, and it might be an interesting experiment to try and take some and kind of combine them. Because I kind of like the upper torso part of 6 and then the coat, but then the waist parts of 3 and then the arm guards on 5. So I don't know. We'll have to think about that. I did say I wanted to get to 8, so I'll think about next time when we return to the character study if I want to try and go for 2 more ideas and then select one. Because what we do with these, just for background, is once we've sketched out an outfit that we want to run forward with the character and figure out which hairstyle we want based on these ideas, then actually draw out the fully fleshed out, lined, colored, and shaded character, and then you get something that looks kind of like this female one, which we didn't get to today. But this one's further along, so I think working on the male one is higher priority for now. So that's the exercise, and I'm going to save this because if I don't, then I'll be very sad. And I think we're well on our way. Hopefully next time we are able to finish the sketch phase and then move on to actually fully drawing the whole thing out. But I think that is going to do it for today's drawing stream. Again, I expected to only get a couple of these done, and we got 3. So that's exceeding expectations. Between that and the interesting discussion about a Team Toxicure fighting game, I definitely think we talked about some interesting stuff today. So let me see if anyone on my list to raid is up that we can go and visit. Let's see. I haven't raided Moo in a while. They are currently playing Pokemon. You can go say hi to Sir Moo. So let me go ahead and pause this. Akon says, thanks for the fun and chill time as always. Oh, no problem. I appreciate you all jumping on. Let's go ahead and go to outro. We will pick back up next week. I have not figured out my stream schedule yet. Most likely we'll be back Monday. Maybe Breath of Fire Monday. I don't know. But schedule will go up on Twitter once I figure it out tomorrow. And so with that, we will go ahead and commence the raid. So thanks again for hanging out, folks. I will catch you in the next stream. Have yourselves a good afternoon, evening, or morning.